Monster Talk.
Welcome to Monster Talk, the science show about monsters. I'm Blake Smith.
And I'm Karen Stolzno.
I really enjoy analyzing old ghost photos, and so do Karen and her husband, Matt Baxter. Today, they're back from their trip down under, and we're going to be talking about some modern viral ghost photos. Now, this is lighter fare than our past few episodes, and a much appreciated step into the orange and red crunchy leaves of the spooky season. Congratulations on getting your book, Bitch, out the door. I know that was a complete bitch to work on. And
it was, yeah. I'm not sure how much listeners are familiar with the story, but Cambridge University Press, I don't know. When I released my first book with them back in 2020, we had a global pandemic. So this time around, they had to beat that somehow. So they had a cyber security attack, and which basically shut down Cambridge University Press for months, and they couldn't receive email, they couldn't issue royalties to people, they couldn't publish books. So the book was delayed, and Amazon was showing one date and they were telling me another date, but I've received my author copies now. And as you know, the Cambridge University Press bookstore featured Bitch in the window of their bookstore, which is cool because it's actually the oldest bookstore in the UK.
Wow.
So I'm pretty, to use a British word, chuffed about it.
Oh, sure. And I imagine a British publishing company not being able to do royalties is very off-brand. What?
Yeah, probably not. But anyway, here today, we have Matt joining us again. Matt
Yay!
Baxter,
Welcome
the show.
back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And welcome
It's
back
good
to you
be here.
both. Man, my God, you guys were gone for a long time down under, so it's great to have you back up topside.
Yeah, it's great to be back, although from our we had 3 flights over the course of about 30 hours, and I still have a little bit of hearing loss in my right ear. So I'm going to try and get in to see an ENT. So even now, as I'm talking to you, everything's like I'm talking into a tin can.
It is good to be back in Denver, Colorado. But right after we got back, we embarked on another huge journey to Laramie, Wyoming.
It was a much bigger trip, yeah.
Huge trip.
Yeah.
Yes, people are telling me that there's been no trip like this ever taken before, and
It's the best trip.
Best trip ever. It was very
Better
classy.
than any other trip.
But yeah, it was a very interesting trip, and we got to see the Lincoln Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
Is it on tour again?
But the Wyoming version. The Wyoming version, and it's still cool. It's still very cool, but it's not quite the massiveness of the normal
Washington,
Lincoln Memorial
DC,
we think about. But we had a great time there, and of course, we're always looking for interesting things and kind of ghost stories and things like that at places we go, and Laramie's full of them. But we happened upon a man who creates eyeglasses using antique frames, like hundreds of years old frames.
Whoa, he makes haunted eyeglasses?
Haunted eyeglasses.
Yes, they
so
would be haunted.
it gives you a completely new perspective on hauntings. It really does.
Quite literally, yeah. But which has nothing to do whatsoever with our topic for today.
Well, I mean, you do need eyes to see ghost photos, so there is that.
Yeah, but
glasses.
sometimes that mightn't help, though.
Yeah, maybe not.
Spectacles to see specters.
There you go.
But yeah. But the reason we're wanting to talk today about viral ghost photos, that's our topic. I guess all the time these images are coming up. So we're not talking about the classics like the brown lady or
the gray lady
Goddard's
or the
squadron or the white lady, the tulip staircase. So these ghost photos are so famous that they have names like that and their backstories and everything. So yeah, we're not going to talk about those because we have previously talked about them. We thought we'd talk, Matt specifically is going to talk about some viral ghost photographs that are doing the round at the moment on TikTok and YouTube and the news as well. It's just surprising to see a lot of these stories get onto the news. They're that unskeptical about these pictures.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that unskeptical reporting going around these days. I just was talking about in the intro to last week's episode, some of the political texts going around is pretty clearly an urban legend, and it's an urban legend that's been around since the 80s. And it really is really disappointing to me that the media doesn't just call it for what it is. Look, this is an urban legend. Look, here's an example from 1985, 86, 83, you know, instead of acting
do their
like
research.
No, they don't. And it's really disappointing. But quickly, before we get into this, I just want to say this is kind of weirdly on topic for my article that just came out in the British Skeptic magazine, where I'm talking about. Yeah,
congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. 10 years of work in a one-page doc. I don't know. It's hard work to get all those ideas distilled. But the main thing is we're talking about virality in terms of it, like exponential growth online, not in the terms of mind virus. And I was really surprised. They ran another article this week, which is an academic response to the idea that mind viruses even exist, and they don't. And there's some beautiful evidence to support that that's not how that works. So I was really excited and it was kind of coincidental, but like very timely. So I appreciate Michael Marshall putting that out. So I'll put that in the show notes as a link. But we're talking about virality in the sense of going exponentially spreading on the internet. So. Yeah, Matt, what you got for us? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say, in terms of that urban legend you were talking about, we're hoping sometime this week, Karen will have an article about that coming out on Cambridge, Cambridge's University Press.
Their blog, that's right.
Yes, their blog.
It always takes some time to go through the production process. So hopefully next week. But I will share that around on social media and hope it goes viral. Like these photographs.
Yeah. Well, here's the funniest thing about a lot of these photos is, other than some stuff that comes up on TikTok, there really aren't as many viral ghost photos as there used to be. And I find that to be really interesting. Now, there's two main categories for these photos, and one is fraud. You know, they're just out and out people trying to fool other people kind of photos. And then there's what we would call pareidolia, or a misunderstanding, you know, because our eyes see things sometimes that aren't there. So we have a lot of misunderstandings when we look at photos often, and we think we see what's, you know, not a ghost.
Well, we want to aid this episode too, because obviously this is a visual conversation. You know, we're talking about this topic. It's visual. So we want to include these pictures in the show notes so that listeners can look at these as we're discussing them, if they're not commuting or something.
Right. So if you're commuting, when you get home, look at the show notes.
There you go.
And it'll make so much more sense.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, I want to talk about this one photo that appears to be like a large human being, or an angel, or a, you know,
alien.
An alien or something floating over what appears to be a strip mall.
Yeah.
As they do.
Yes. Which, you know,
it's very ominous. If I saw this, I would also pull over and take a photo. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. The only problem with this particular photo is when we look at it, we don't get multiple pictures of this. We get one picture. Now, if you did see this, like you said, Blake, you would pull over and take a picture of it. There are a lot of cars driving in this picture and a lot of cars parked. So a lot of people should have seen this, and we should have a lot of pictures of this from different angles.
Good point.
We have one photo. So this particular picture, you look at, and you can kind of tell that there's some Photoshop going on in this, you know, or a photo editing
because for
episode.
Someone like me, I really can't. I mean, I don't immediately look at it and think this is a ghost. I look for natural explanations, but on the surface of things, I can't spot it.
Okay, well, and that's fine. That's fine, because you know what you can do is try to see if there's anything that resembles out there already this human-like form.
Okay.
And there is, because there's a kite. So
I've seen the second photograph.
In the show notes, if you go down a little bit, you can see the kite. And that's it. The kite was photoshopped into it. There's right underneath that, I have a link. So if you want to go purchase this kite, you can, as extra proof that it's the kite that's real and not photoshopped, and not the picture of the strange human floating over the mall.
Right.
I want you to know that the picture of the kite that I have there is not fake news. That is actually real. That's a real kite. You can go and buy it.
It's all grayed out, so it's like a gray, dark shape hovering above the shopping center, which would make it, I don't know what, several hundred feet in length if it were real.
Oh,
It'd be really, really big.
Or close to you.
Or really super close,
Yeah.
which is, that would also be creepy. But it parts of it look like it's floating in the clouds in an angelic, demonic way or something.
But it has the same arms and legs.
Oh, it's a really close match to
head
the
and-
cloud, or to
Yeah,
the, excuse
it
me,
is.
to the kite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of different variations of this kite that you can get. This particular one is called a spirit, this particular kite. So,
Very telling.
yeah, kind of gives it away.
Well, we've got lots of pictures, so we should probably move on to the next one.
Yes. So this next one here is it's kind of a popular one. It's of six ladies. They look to be anywhere from teenage to early 20s, and there is a young girl in the photo, probably 3 years old, I'm guessing. That is they're all posing for the picture, but the little girl is crying her eyes out. And supposedly the reason she's crying is because an unseen hand pushed her in the back. And then you can see between the legs of two of the girls a very disturbing face looking out.
I see it. Yep.
These are among my favorite kind of photo. The face or the hand or the part, like the body that shouldn't be able to be where it's shown. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Exactly. Now, the thing is here's the problem with photos like this. It could be a multitude of things. You can't say one solution and go, solved. We solved it, because there are many different solutions. Now, when you have a photo that has many different solutions, it suddenly makes the ghost solution that much less likely. It's unlikely to begin with, but it's that much less likely as soon as you have several solutions. Now, I was sort of, when I was a little kid, about 3 years old, I was sort of in this position of this little girl, in the sense that I always wanted to be around my older siblings. And I was often mysteriously pushed in the back to get out of their way, in which I would
by
cry.
a ghost.
I would cry my eyes out. So they didn't want her in this photo, is what I'm guessing, and they pushed her, and she's crying.
Oh.
So I think it has nothing to do with an unseen hand, other than the fact that the little girl probably wasn't looking when the hand pushed her. But the thing is I'm able to, if I look hard enough, to see eyes looking from practically between all of these silhouettes of legs.
Yeah.
If I want to look hard enough.
Distressing in their genes.
So the thing that bothers me is this face that is between these legs is kind of too good.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Compared to the other marks, yeah.
Either there's another young sibling that was in the picture and playing around, or this was put in there.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say which.
Or it's a ghost.
Or a ghost. Or it could be potentially a case of pareidolia, where we're looking and we're seeing a face because we are naturally wired kind of to do so. You know, when we're born, the first thing we see is kind of our mother's face, you know, and we bond with that. So when we look at clouds, we see faces. When we see, you know, any kind of just random
Jesus on a tortilla.
patterns, we see Jesus, we see Mary, we see Bernadette Peters on toast, we see all kinds of things. And the bottom line is that we don't know. We've got one picture. There were probably more than one picture taken. There was probably more than one picture taken in this little setting here, but we only see this one. So we don't see what's before and what's after it.
Yeah.
So we have a real deficit of information.
Sure.
So all we can say is there's a lot of solutions to this. It's probably not a ghost.
Yeah, I would add that there are people who are like super inclined to see patterns. if you see patterns everywhere, unbidden, they call that apophenia. And I don't think it's a binary. I think apophenia is sort of a spectrum. Some people are more inclined to make connections than others. But
Yes.
On the far end of that spectrum is sort of the synchromysticism world where literally everything is connected. And it feels like madness, but a lot of people find comfort in finding all these connections. And this is everything from ghost photos to the Bible code, just seeing patterns everywhere.
Yeah, trying to make sense of our environments.
Yeah.
Well, I often get comfort from madness. I thought they were a pretty good group. I like Our House.
Oh yeah, in the
One
middle of
step
our
beyond.
street.
Yeah.
I get a lot of comfort from madness often. But one of the interesting things here
Welcome
is
to the House of Fun, by the way. That's
yes.
Now you've come of age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But apophenia applies as well to sound. And we need to think about, we're just, here looking at pictures, but when we talk about EVPs and things like that, people hear things that maybe aren't necessarily what they think they're hearing.
Yeah, and it just makes me think of, as soon as our son was born, suddenly I'm hearing a child crying or talking every time I get into the shower.
Yes.
And then on the other side of things, you've got someone like Frank Sumption,
Frank's Box guy.
Frank's Box fame, who what was he? I think had a tap running one day, and thought he could hear his son's voice through the water, or could hear his wife calling him through water. So it's interesting how different people will hear different things.
Well, yeah, and like you
Some more
got
prone to
Richard Shaver
paranormal.
using his welding machine and hearing voices from beneath the earth. I mean, yeah. Although we've talked before about like when you see too many patterns, I call it crapophenia, where like you're making connections that are pretty obvious to most people are not really there, but it
I like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it happens a lot with blow dryers. Blake, when you're drying your hair with blow dryer.
Exactly. What I frequent thing I do for sure.
You always
I'm
hear
brushing
a
my
phone
hair.
ring. You hear the phone ringing, and you turn off the dryer, the phone ringing stops. You turn it back on, the phone rings again.
Yeah.
But it's not. The phone's not there. It's not happening. Or you hear a police siren.
Well,
Yeah.
moving on, we've got lots of pictures still. So
Yeah. So this next one is called the Blue Angel at the gas station.
Oh my God, this takes me back. So
Yeah. A lot of
When
us are
was
going to
this?
remember
When was
this.
kind of early 2000s.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing 2008. It's just a guess.
Yep.
Okay.
Right around then.
It predates Monster Talk, but it was one of my first YouTube videos was a response to this. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, this is going back a little.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah.
It feels a little
And
silly to look at it now, but anyway, I love this.
And I'm curious, Blake, on some of the details of what you think about this, because I only partially agree with, say, Captain Disillusion on this one.
Okay.
Because he's saying it's blue because of the reflection off a blue wall.
I never really looked at the color issue. I just basically recreated. I basically did a video where I showed how that if the camera is focused on the distant and you put something in the foreground really close, it becomes super blurry. Yeah.
Yes. And I actually made a recreation of this as well. But in terms of the color, it's a blue angel because the color on the camera itself is sort of calibrated more to the blue.
Yeah.
And the reason you can see that is the reporter that did the story on this stands in front of the camera at one point, and her outfit is purple. When she walks in the store and the regular news cameras are on her, her outfit is red.
Oh, that's a
interesting.
pretty clear indicator of a color shift. Yeah.
Exactly. So I disagree that there's reflection off a blue wall. It's the camera problem itself. But this is absolutely a bug on the lens or on the glass or the casing of the camera. And it happens all the time on these security cameras. We see it so much. And the bottom line is you're absolutely right that something close to the camera, when the camera is focused for a distance, something close to the camera will always be blurry. It's not ghostly, it's blurry.
Well, this is reminding me, Matt, of another video that you recreated of a gym that had a
Yeah.
ghost.
Oh, spidery.
And that was
Yes.
a bug. Yeah. Yeah, and Blake has done that with the train. Was it the train video? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of
Yeah, the
things.
Phantom train with the spider web.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all remember that one. You go back through our YouTube channel if you want to see that.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
But that was Factor Faked that was on. But and I was doing an investigation at a local restaurant called Yak and Yeti, and I on one of our cameras
That is eating dinner.
I caught a spider swinging across the lens, and it looked like a ghost walking across in front of the camera. But it was definitely a spider swinging on a web. And the reason I know that is because the camera picked up the mic on the camera picked up it screaming as it went by. So that's
Well,
how
there
I
you
know.
go.
I would say next time in Colorado, we need to go do some further investigation over Curry for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. But this next one is I thought initially looking at this picture that it was another case of something on the camera lens.
But it's
that
a shadow person.
just happened to look like a shadow person walking out into the street. But I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. It is, if you watch the YouTube video that will be in the show notes, you will see a shadow person literally walking out into the street.
In front of cars and
in front of
buses.
cars and being completely unaffected by passing by cars. And that makes me feel, not know, but feel that this is a complete hoax.
Yeah, it looks like a hoax to me. I'm watching the same thing. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because it doesn't move like a human or anything like that. But the bottom line is if a camera could pick up a ghost, there are more dead people on this earth than there are live people.
That's true.
And
fact.
they would be picking up this everywhere. The streets would be
All the time.
covered with ghosts with all these cameras everywhere. But they're
Why
not.
this one?
Why this one? It does. To me, it says fraud, hoax. But I could be wrong. So now this next one, we have a picture of someone standing in front of a mine shaft. And in the background, it seems to be a cowboy in a long trench coat, like maybe from the spaghetti westerns.
Clint Eastwood for
Yeah,
sure.
got a duster
Exactly.
and a cowboy hat. Yep.
Yeah, and you totally see it because you're primed to see it. That's what
told,
you see.
yeah.
Although we don't know how tall that bush is. That's
Exactly.
Is this cowboy
Like-
6 feet tall or 6 inches tall? I can't tell.
Exactly. You really don't have a good frame of reference for it. But the bottom line is we've been primed to see a cowboy. We've been told there's a cowboy overlooking on the hill. So we completely ignore the fact that there's a lot of rocks everywhere around here. That could be a rock sitting there. But how do I explain the cowboy hat? Well, I'll get to that in a moment. But one thing about these mine shafts is there's always a lot of junk around. Any mine shaft, there's a lot of junk around. If you scroll down, you can see it at a mine shaft that's not that far away. You see a old metal barrel with a sign that says "Thieves will be prosecuted."
Very threatening
The
sign.
barrel has lots of bullet holes through it and everything. But it comes to show that there are things that, if sitting up on a hill, if there's things leaning up against it or whatever, you may not be able to recognize exactly what it is because you don't have the depth perception. You can't tell.
Yep.
Now, as for the cowboy hat, if you kind of zoom in on that cowboy hat, it also kind of looks a little bit like a bird landing. Well, gee, how lucky would you have to get a shot of a bird landing? Well, I looked up bird landing on Google, and there's a ton of pictures of birds landing because birds land multiple times a day, and there's a lot of birds out there. So, and a bird landing looks a little bit like a cowboy hat.
It does.
So
It's
if you
still
had a
more
bird,
plausible than a ghost.
yeah, it's. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it is more plausible than a ghost.
Yeah.
So a bird landing on a rock, a stump, a piece of junk or whatever could look a little bit like this.
As you were saying before with the other photograph, we don't have anything that precedes this or follows this. So perhaps in a following picture or a preceding picture, it's not there.
Yeah, that is always annoying. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, Richard Wiseman years ago ran a ghost hunting website where basically people posted ghost photos and people tried to explain them. And oh my God, I had so much fun on that site. There was so many, and one of the main,
great idea.
One of the main tactics was to try to find other photos of the same site from different angles. Yes. And some really easy explanations came from just realizing that, oh, that's a rock. Oh, that's a painting inside the building. You know, that sort of thing that you couldn't tell from the alleged ghost photo, but you could easily tell from a different perspective at a different time. So yeah, I'd love to see some different photos of this site. That would be one of the first things I'd want to find.
Yeah. And I dug and I couldn't find anything, but I know both you and I have done that.
Yeah.
Blake, we've solved things by doing just that. And then people don't think about it. They only look at the one picture.
Yeah.
They don't think about, well, would a different picture show what that is better?
Exactly.
You know, or
Matt,
it's those kind of things.
You've talked about the Brook Forest Inn before. Do you want to try to quickly tell us that anecdote about the photograph and the group that came through that you were educating?
Oh, sure. So there was a ghost hunting group that wanted to go into the Brook Forest Inn, which is kind of in the mountain town of Evergreen here in Colorado. And it's got lots of ghost stories associated with it. The owner said, you cannot come in unless you take a ghost hunting course. We don't care how experienced you are. You have to take a ghost hunting course from Matthew Baxter. So I thought that's really cool that they said that. So it's like, okay, set it up and explained how to do things. And they ignored everything we said. So they went through just snapping shots of everything.
In the dark.
In the dark. And they sent us one photo. And it was one photo only. And I can send this photo to you, Blake, so you'll have it for the show notes. But it looked like a very mysterious lion was there in the hotel.
Wow.
And it was really kind of scary looking, or some kind of weird distorted dog or something. But there was this vicious looking animal that was like in the dark coming out at you kind of. And they couldn't explain it. And we're like, well, send us pictures from before and after of this picture.
Yeah.
So we
Seems
threw
obvious.
all those away.
Well, because they didn't have a lion in them, you see.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
threw away all the other pictures.
Or maybe they did, and that's the problem.
So it's like, I'm really like face palming myself at this point. So I went through the inn and looked for what it could have been. And you know what I found?
What?
I found a picture hanging on the wall of a statue of a lion.
Huh.
They took a picture of a picture.
They took a
Very
picture of
meta.
a picture in the dark, and then were shocked to find, that this was actually a picture hanging on the wall of a lion.
Did they believe you, though? That's what I wonder.
Oh, I
Or did
kind of
they-
made it so they couldn't deny it. Yeah, and they felt really smart, after I showed it to them. But it's just people get so excited about finding a ghost and how special that would be. That they find it that more important than paying attention to the facts.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about how many times, we're talking about ghosts, but another category of this kind of photo is religious photos of Virgin Mary or saints appearing in photos.
Marian apparitions. Yeah.
Boy, oh my gosh, people want that to be true, and they're very motivated for that to be true. And when you post even a pretty obvious fake, you'll find a lot of people who find it a wonderful confirmation of their pre-existing belief. And it's like, you can't remove bias from the explanations. Like you just, it's part of the story.
Oh,
Did
Yeah,
you ever
you're
see
right.
I took a picture of a pancake years ago, and it had Osama bin Laden in it.
Huh.
And I can send you that picture. It's so convincing.
Terrorist
And if you
pancake.
look, you can see like a skull elsewhere. But Osama bin Laden is the most important thing in the picture. And I'm positive that that's real.
This waffle was an inside job. That's what I believe.
But yeah, there are lots of pictures that I think we've spoken about before when we did the show for YouTube on Marian apparitions. Do you guys remember we talked about the Sydney Mary,
Yes.
Virgin Mary? And yeah, she was a fence post or something somewhere in Waverley. I can't remember exactly where it was, Bondi Beach, around that area. But at certain times of the day, you would see her, and then the rest of the time you wouldn't. And it was, basically a fence post. But it was a fantastic angle. And yeah, well, you've got lots of those images. There was one on the Chicago, some underpass.
Yes.
Chicago. Yeah. Lots of them.
Yeah. On the fence about marrying, right?
That would have been a great title. Okay, well, moving on. We've still got a few more to look at.
We do.
Yeah. So this next one is interesting because it's a couple that they're sitting. It's at night, and they're sitting kind of up against the sort of retaining wall kind of thing.
Yeah, and it looks like a really old place that they're at. Like it looks like made of old stone.
A castle or something.
Yeah, castle.
There
or
were steps
fort.
going up on on the side, and they had someone take a picture of them. And this is obviously not the only photo from this, because she's not ready. She's looking at her fingernails, and so is he, and they're completely not ready. And there's a ghost standing next to him. So they were not ready for the shot, and the ghost, was ready. But
the ghosts are always ready.
This cannot be the only photo from this series here.
Yeah.
So, but what it is, when you look at it, if you know anything about photography, this was a slow shutter speed.
Yeah.
And somebody was walking by, or somebody was also supposed to be in the picture, and they just moved
Matt,
a little
I
bit.
don't remember anyone else being there when the photos were developed. This is what I saw.
Yeah.
How do you explain
So
that?
shall we talk about that? Because yes, I absolutely agree with that. You've the power of the backstory, the power of those kind of things. See, if you have things like that going on, that kind of backstory, it paints a picture that's away from skepticism, and you have this assumed honesty of these people.
Sure.
So they're filling in the blanks for the more sensational possibility here. Well, I don't want to say possibility, but story.
Yeah.
And that kind of, people assume honesty when they're hearing these very earnest backstories. But it's just not good enough for them to say, oh, well, I don't remember anyone in the picture. If that person was a little bit behind you, you might not have seen it. Or if it's like multiple pictures were taken, it's like, oh, wait, there's people walking by, whatever. You don't tend to always remember those things.
Of course, yeah.
So it can be honesty in some cases that they literally didn't remember someone being there.
True enough.
But this is obviously some sort of landmark where people are going to be walking by.
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't remember anybody that they knew personally. But
Just a stranger walking
that
past.
doesn't mean it's devoid of human activity.
Sure.
So, and of course, even the quality of this picture is terrible. But you can tell that is a slow shutter speed of someone walking by, and it's pretty simple.
Makes sense.
For our final picture here that I want to talk about is a much older picture. It is claimed to be 1900, and it is of linen workers in Belfast.
Okay.
So the collectivists got it. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, the thing is on one of the young lady that submitted this to an Irish website said that this woman on the right was her grandmother. And she had never noticed before this mysterious hand on her shoulder. Okay.
It's spooky.
That is spooky. But for those of us that know anything about Photoshop, there was a heyday of being able to pirate Photoshop between pretty much 2000 and 2010. And the kind of photo trickery that many of us would do becomes very obvious in this photo. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the repetition of copy and paste trying to make it look like there's nothing behind this
using
person.
the rubber stamp tool circa 1996.
Yeah. But if you take it a little bit farther, like I said, this really became a thing in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Now, what's stunning about this is this picture was submitted to this website 2005. So the timing works out. But so we have this picture, and in this picture, there's 10 women. But if you look a little harder, you suddenly see that it's not the original picture. There are 15 women in this other picture.
That is so strange because I've only ever seen the first one that you have here with the 10 women. Yeah, wow. So lots missing.
Let's go back to this one with the 10 women. You get a little cleaner picture. Now, you've got the woman that has the hand on her shoulder. Right to her left, it looks like Kathleen. And it looks like she time traveled.
It does. Blake's wife.
you're not wrong.
She time traveled, and she time traveled right after she heard Blake say a pun.
I'll have to say she even looks even more like Kathleen's grandmother. Oh my God, she looks like Kathleen's grandmother. Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
I mean, she's a
I see the resemblance of you.
an absolute ringer for my wife's grandmother.
Yeah,
it's the Latvian face. She's got that whole
So if you could do me a favor, Blake, and see if Kathleen has any old pictures of her grandmother as a linen worker.
Yes.
Because then if we could get a better picture of this, that would be great. Okay, but here's another problem with this picture with the 15 girls. Okay, so you still have the mysterious hand on the shoulder, but the girl in the top row on the far right looks wrong in the picture. The skirt is different from everyone else's, and it looks like it could be photoshopped a bit. There's some things kind of missing there.
Aside from everyone, the rest of them are all kind of huddled together.
Yeah,
and, she's off to the
even her face and everything, it doesn't look right, and even the background behind her is different from everyone else.
Yeah. I see what's going on here. Yeah, exactly.
There could be, some chemical problems in the developing that can have that happen.
It is worth. I think this is super important, especially for things like this and for Goddard Squadron Photo. It's important to remember that the modern software of Photoshop is named that because of the techniques that they're making digitally that recreate the things that people used to do mechanically in the photo studio. And that included literally painting or drawing or taking pieces from the negative and pasting them into another negative. And then reshooting. So, I mean, I could see where this could be, the literal result of old-timey Photoshop in the analog sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because here's another thing that I think is kind of strange. And that is, if we're talking about a linen factory, I don't think these are the only women that work there. And the aspect ratio kind of looks wrong to me, because it's a little too square. And on shots like this, they tended to be a little more landscape.
Yeah.
So I feel like we are missing more. And the fact that this only came out in 2005, I find to be
suspicious.
Peculiar. Yeah. Well, it's also worth remembering that in this age, they would often take multiple photos and then use scissors and other tools to put together the best version.
That's where cut and paste came from.
Literally cut and paste came from. Exactly. And if you don't know that, you might think, well, this is impervious to manipulation because it predates, digital photography. No, that's not how that works at all. In fact, if we go back to looking at Mumler's work and other sort of early photographic manipulation, I mean, these techniques were within 30 years of photography being invented, widespread.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the thing is I'm not saying that what we're implying here is the solution, because there's a lot of different possibilities on this, but it kind of points to the fact that that's not a ghost.
Yeah.
That hand is not from a ghost.
So, big picture question. So we've talked before and actually, I guess over the course of the show, lots of times about the question of whether or not photography or video is ever going to be useful for proving the existence of the paranormal or persistence of life after death or any of these things. And I think with the advent of these digital tools and artificial intelligence making, photos out of composite information, I just wonder, have we lost completely the idea that photographs can be evidentiary?
Yeah, I think that there's got to be a lot of kind of constraints around that kind of evidence. If you've got a very secure sort of security camera that's can't be tampered with, and you're getting it from the original source. You see things like there was the tea stealing ghost in Great Britain, when you see this tea box of tea float in this grocery store, in this drugstore. Mm-hmm. That was taken off security camera footage with an iPhone.
I was in Whitby too, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
Talked a lot about Whitby.
That's where the item floated straight across from one shelf to another. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was too good.
Yeah. So the thing is it was not an original source, and none of these things are original source, and that's where we get photo degradation, which really adds into the pareidolia. And that's like some of these pictures, they are so many generations from the original photo that it's a bit like the telephone game. You have the original person at the end of the line whispering something into someone's ear. By the time you get to the end of the line, it's something completely different than what was originally said. Mm. That is the same thing with photo degradation. The more you degrade the photo, the more you're going to see things that aren't there. Mm. And this goes for window reflections. There's a face in that window. Well, no, that was the face of you taking the picture. There's all kinds of problems in that sense.
The Myrtle's Plantation photograph as well of Chloe.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. The degradation in that, because that picture was taken, in like 1980 something?
I think it was in the 90s.
90s. So there's no reason for it to be like black and white, because the picture was in color when it was taken.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they really degraded it so you couldn't tell that it was a laundry mangler,
that's our theory. Yeah.
Well, it is our theory, and being able to say I don't know is very important.
Yeah, true. But it's the best theory I've ever come across. But I guess we should close off pretty soon. But I have just another big picture question that our son Blade asked, because here we are. Last night we were looking at ghost photographs on YouTube and talking about people committing fraud and creating these photographs and inserting ghosts and doing all these kinds of things that you've been discussing. But why do people do this? It's one thing if people think they're seeing something in an image and it's pareidolia, but why do people commit fraud when it comes to photographs?
It's fun for a lot of us. I think it's just
hilarious. A question was for Matt.
It's very funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's absolutely, I would say the number one reason is it is a very teenage mindset to do it. It's hilarious. It is fun. How many people can you fool? It's like, a lot of guys when they're young will like flex their bicep and show you how big their bicep is, but behind their bicep, they're pushing it up with their other hand.
Shh, don't spoil the trick. I'm trying to make my kids think the workout's really paying off. So
yeah. It's hilarious to do that because it's a joke. You're ready for people to go, oh, wait a minute. And when they don't, it's hilarious. Yeah, but on top of that, it is also, you've got pious fraud. Where you truly believe in something, but you can't produce the evidence and you truly believe in it, you will produce evidence just to get other people to believe the way you do. Sure. And there's a lot of reasons, and there's just some bad psychological reasons to do it, and then there's just having fun. Sometimes there's no real, unless you're making money off it. A lot of people do this more for attention than they do for money. But money does come into it as well.
So in the end, if we're looking for the question of whether or not ghost photos can prove the existence of ghosts, We have to answer in the negative.
Oh, and cut.
Cut and paste.
Exactly.
Monster Talk.
You've been listening to Monster Talk, the science show about monsters. I'm Blake Smith.
And I'm Karen Stolzno.
You just heard a conversation with Matt Baxter and Karen Stolzno and myself about analyzing viral ghost photos. I will always have a special place in my heart for this kind of work, but as technology improves and people get better and better at faking these things digitally, I have to wonder if they will eventually lose all their power to fascinate. I hope not. But in the meantime, remember that when a photo looks too good to be true, it probably is. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Monster Talk. Each episode, we strive to bring you the very best in monster-related content with a focus on bringing scientific skepticism into the conversation. If you enjoy Monster Talk, we now have a variety of ways to support the show, all with convenient links at monstertalk.org/support. That's monstertalk.org/support. We have links there to our Patreon page as well as a donation button. Another great way to support the show is to buy books from our Amazon Monster Talk wish list, which directly helps us with our research. We love used books very much, so don't feel compelled to buy new ones, and we love Kindle so we can share our digital libraries with each other. And finally, without spending any money at all, you can support us by leaving a positive review at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Positive reviews help keep us visible in iTunes, which is a great way to help us find new listeners. And please share our show on your favorite social media platforms. Monster Talk's theme music is by Peach Stealing Monkeys. Analyzing ghost photos always makes me shudder to think.
This has been a Monster House presentation.